Good afternoon. I don't want to yell into the mic, but I do want to be heard. Can you all hear me okay? Is the volume okay? Yes? Speak up? Okay. All right. Well, obviously, mental health is a huge topic, and we are not going to try to pretend to be comprehensive today. I just want to introduce a few ideas to you. And I apologize. I had prepared slides, colorful slides for you to see, but we don't have that capability at the moment. So I'm just gonna talk off my little notes here. Okay. I'm going to focus mostly on the topic of depression. Hundreds of millions of people around the globe suffer from depression and anxiety, as you are aware. And the rates of these diseases are rising steeply as we speak. Treatment for common mental health disorders like depression and anxiety has largely just relied on medications, but pharmaceutical treatments for depression don't actually work extremely well. They especially don't work very well long term. And when we look at other mental health disorders like schizophrenia, pharmaceutical treatment can suppress what we call the positive symptoms of schizophrenia, like hallucinations and paranoia, but it's not very good for other symptoms like disorganization and lack of working memory and things like that. Fortunately, we have an exciting new frontier in the study of treatments for mental health, and that is looking at your GI tract, the gut, your intestines. It turns out that there are trillions of microbes, as you're probably all aware, that live in your gut. These are mostly bacteria. Collectively, we refer to the genetic makeup of the gut bacteria as the microbiome, the gut microbiome. Did you know that I, up here, perhaps despite having ancestry that's different from many of you out there, I and any person sitting out there, 99.9% of our DNA will be the same because we're human. However, my gut microbiome DNA can be up to 90% different from someone else's. And that is because there are many factors that contribute to this microbial universe, and diet plays a huge role. I'm excited to learn that we can manipulate and modulate this gut microbiome, and that the microbiome is connected to many, many diseases. In fact, it's connected to your health in general. It will impact your risk of dying young from cardiovascular disease. It impacts your likelihood of being obese and of getting type 2 diabetes and other obesity-related diseases. The gut microbiome actually impacts your risk of getting neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, ALS, Alzheimer's disease, all conditions that people are terrified about. Am I still picking up? And it impacts mental health. Depression, anxiety, we're looking at studies on schizophrenia as well. Now, most of you realize that the Western diet, what nutrition researchers will sometimes refer to as the standard American diet, is not very good for you, right? It's high in fat, particularly animal fat. It's high in refined carbohydrates, and it's low in fiber and low in those all-important molecules that help your cells to heal, called micronutrients or antioxidant-capable nutrients, versus a diet that's more based on plants, that consists of fiber-rich foods, vegetables, whole grains, beans, and so forth. Well, your diet greatly impacts the kind of bacteria that thrive in your GI tract. So it's not so cut and dry simple. We can't identify 1 or 2 or 3 species of bacteria and say, here, these are good for you, and these here are bad for you. It seems to be this whole milieu, the relationships and the relative amounts of these that makes the difference for your health. But we do know that if you are on a high fiber diet, a high antioxidant high fiber diet, so you're not just putting Metamucil psyllium husk into your food, you are getting your fiber from many different varieties of food, because that's what we need. There are many different kinds of fibers. I'll talk about that in my next talk. But if you get this diversity of fibers in your diet, you will have a diverse gut microbiome. And the more species you have in there, you know, genetic diversity is always a good thing. And this is true of the gut microbiome. The more species you have in there, the better your GI tract health will be, and the better it is for issues like chronic pain, which I'll talk about as well. We also know that the sources of fats in your diet impacts the gut microbiome. There are studies showing that if you're getting largely plant-sourced fats from things like olive oil, nuts and seeds, avocados, this has a favorable impact, you know, boosting those populations of bifidobacteria, lactobacillus, other species that are beneficial, and decreasing the Clostridia, the E. coli, and so forth. The opposite effect is true if you're getting your fat largely from animals. If you take the skin off the chicken, by the way, that you're eating, it's still 24% fat. That's by percentage of calories coming from fat. Briefly want to talk about antioxidants. So in the process of living and breathing, we produce metabolic waste. We consume oxygen and we consume sugar, and we produce metabolic waste. And these waste molecules can actually do damage if they're not neutralized by antioxidants. And so we want to eat a lot of foods that contain antioxidants. Antioxidants are going to be derived primarily from plants. And again, variety is important. You want to eat your greens, right, for the chlorophyll. You also want to eat purple things. There was a study called the SMILES trial. That's an acronym, S-M-I-L-E-S, and I don't remember off the top of my head what SMILES stands for. But in this study, they took depressed people who were on treatment for depression and randomized them actually to 2 different groups. It was a 12-week study, and one group got this intervention of group therapy, and the other group got an intervention of dietary change. Now, the researchers were not feeding these people. The dietary intervention was simply advice. They were advised to eat less processed meats, refined carbs, and eat more whole grains and vegetables, less animal products in general. 12-week study, and at the end of those 12 weeks, what they found was astounding. The dietary intervention group that were eating more fiber, more colors, and less fried food, junk food, processed food, less animal products as well, they had 4 times as much improvement in their depression scores, it's by questionnaire, depression scores and anxiety scales compared to the group that was getting the group therapy. And in fact, a full 1/3, over 1/3, actually it was a full 1/3 of the dietary intervention group reported complete remission of their depressive symptoms, whereas in the group therapy group, only 8% reported complete remission. That's not to say that group therapy and socializing is not important, but we have come to the point in time where we cannot ignore the impact of diet as a foundation for treatment for mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety. Monoamine oxidase is an enzyme that breaks down some of your brain neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. And so monoamine oxidase inhibitors have been used as antidepressants. Well, you can get naturally occurring monoamine oxidase inhibition by eating foods that are rich in quercetin. So quercetin could be considered natural antidepressant. It is rich in foods like apples and onions and kale and berries. I want to talk a little bit about the very inflammatory fat called arachidonic acid. So aside from saturated fat, which you all know about, another animal fat, because it's only found in animals, that's especially found in products like fish and chicken, is arachidonic acid. It is a polyunsaturated fat, but it's highly inflammatory. And it leads to neuroinflammation. It actually makes you a little more prone to getting blood clots. That's something we want to avoid. But people say, well, but fish has omega-3 fats. Isn't that anti-inflammatory, and shouldn't you be getting omega-3s in your diet? So I want to say a couple of things about that. If I had my slides, I'd share some of these studies with you. But there are studies showing that if you compare people who are eating fish and seafood 3 or 4 times a week but avoiding other animal products, compared with omnivores who are eating all animal products regularly, compared with a group that was eating largely just plant-based, we actually do not see these ideas that fish is good for you pan out. This is a study of depressed people. This was presented in 2009 at the American Public Health Association conference by some researchers at Loma Linda. And what they showed was that in the fish group and the omnivore group, there was no improvement. But in just 2 weeks' time, people who were on a plant-based diet reported improvement in their mental health. Omega-3s are important, but guess what? You could get them from plants. So the long-chain omega-3s like EPA and DHA, which you get from fish and also from mother's milk, you won't find that in plants. But what you do find in plants is ALA, alpha-linolenic acid, which is a shorter-chain omega-3 fat. And you'll find it abundantly in foods like chia seeds and walnuts and flax seeds and even dark green leafy vegetables. Well, ALA is converted to all the DHA and EPA that your body needs. So God designed that we can get all the nutrients that we need from plants. As I close my little segment, I want to talk about the benefits of exercise. Exercise engages your frontal lobes. As you strengthen your willpower, it will help you with depressive symptoms. There are studies showing that particularly purposeful work outdoors, like gardening, is beneficial for mental health. Also, there are studies showing that beneficence, benevolent activities, engaging in helping other people is beneficial for mental health. And don't forget to get out in the sun, get sunshine and fresh air. I'll talk about that a little more next hour. There's a prescription for mental health in the Bible. In Philippians 4, verses 6 and on, it says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God that passes all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." And here comes the prescription too. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, are just, are lovely, of good report, are pure, if there's anything praiseworthy, if there is anything virtuous, think on these things, right? So next time you find yourself spiraling in this depressed state, stop and ask yourself, what have I been thinking about right now? What has been inhabiting my thoughts? And I think it's time that we practice giving those thoughts to God and asking Him to help us redirect our thoughts. And as with anything in life, the more we do it, the easier it gets. Thank you for your time.